Before we dive in, your CPA tells you what you owe. Axiom Wealth helps you keep more of it. Axiom combines powerful tax mitigation with high performing alternative investments built for scaling real estate investors. Book your free wealth x ray today at axiomwealth.com.
I was pretty broke when I got started in the world of real estate. Then I went from getting like 10 views an hour to 2,000 views an hour. And I was like, oh my God, I've done it. There is another way out there. I can influence my paycheck. That year I 10x'd my income and things just kind of went crazy. I'm like, I can't imagine going back to a 9 to 5. Creative financing is a really beautiful opportunity. And while it seems very beginner friendly because you can get in with low to no money down, I think it's really actually quite advanced and should be used as an advanced tool.
Before we get into today's episode, if you own a rental property and you haven't done a cost segregation study, you're overpaying taxes. DIY Cost Seg gets you an official report in 5 minutes. Starting at $4.95. Use code Creative Closer to save $50 on residential studies or Creative Closer C to save $100 on commercial. Go to DIYcostseg.com.
Hello, Rob Abasolo. Thank you so
Hello.
much for being on the podcast. You are the one and only forward to this book, The Creative Closer.
Yay.
And because of
And
that,
it's the first forward I've ever written, by the way.
boom, I feel very excited about that.
And so far the only, but it's great pride that it is my first.
Yeah. No one else can be your first. So this is a very special space.
That's
I
right.
love it. Okay, well, we're going to talk about creative financing today. So can you introduce yourself? I mean, I know you don't need an introduction, but can you tell the audience about yourself in relation to creative finance?
For sure. Yeah. So my name is Rob Abasolo. I am primarily a short-term rental investor. I got started about 8 or so years ago. Maybe we're going on 9. I started in a little niche within Airbnb called the rental arbitrage, where you basically lease an apartment and sublease it out on Airbnb. And quickly realized that while that was a great cash flow generator, it wasn't a great wealth generator by any means. And so I started slowly acquiring properties and partnering up with people and raising money and just figuring out how to scale my portfolio without ever using my own money because I didn't have any. I was pretty broke when I got started in the world of real estate. And so in a lot of ways, I kind of creatively financed a lot of the beginnings of my portfolio until eventually in 2026, I have about 40 to 45 units comprised of a 20-unit motel, a 13-unit tiny home village, and 10 or 15 single-family residences around the country. And I think I'm in about like 8 or 9 markets at the moment. And yeah, I make YouTube videos that teach people how to do this. You can always find the free stuff on the Robuilt channel.
Yes, and your YouTube just crossed a threshold, 400,000 subscribers. Congratulations.
Yes.
That's so exciting.
Yes. On the almost on the 6-year anniversary, it was on the 6th year and first day of starting my channel. I hit 400,000 subscribers. So I think people like what I have to say.
Don't let it go to your head.
To be determined.
Yeah. Okay, well, tell us actually a little bit about Baby Rob and like him getting on this channel. What was the inspiration to do that?
Yeah, so I was at lunch. It was December 23rd. It was the day before we broke for Christmas Eve at my ad agency. I was in the ad world before all of this. I was a copywriter. And I was sitting around the table with some friends. Someone started talking about YouTube and how YouTubers make a lot of money. And I was like, I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel where I make things. Like I want to do DIY, but I want to be kind of like funny and weird. And my 3 friends all at the same time were like, you have to do that. And I was like, yeah, you think people would want to watch that? And they're like, yes, absolutely. And so I was like, okay. And so a week later, I shot and recorded and edited my first video and put it online on January 8th. So basically, I started off as a DIY channel wanting to teach people how to build things, which is why it's called Robuilt, X, right? And after doing that for about 6 months, I was getting like, literally dozens of views, not a lot. And I ran out of content ideas and decided to just go out, and I had a tiny home that I had built in my backyard in Los Angeles. And I didn't have any ideas. So I was like, well, I don't have anything to build, but I can tell people about this tiny house. And so I went out and put a tripod up and just started talking about this tiny house and how I built it and how much it cost and how much I thought I would make on Airbnb. And I posted it, and it didn't really get any views. But randomly one day, because with YouTube, things don't necessarily go viral out the gate. And so it took
Good
about,
to
I
know.
think 6 months from that day. I looked at my stats and I went from getting like 10 views an hour to 2,000 views an hour. And I was like, oh my God, I've done it. I've gone viral. And that view ended up getting about like 400,000 views,
Wow.
or that video got 400,000 views in about a week's time. And so big deal for me at the time, like huge deal. And so I kind of realized that people didn't care about the DIY thing, but they cared about this like Airbnb tiny home
Yeah.
thing. I was actually kind of bummed about it because I had my heart set on
Well, you have a
DIY
super
and
cool
nobody
name,
wanted to watch that.
you know?
Exactly. I was like, the name, like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I never changed the
Yeah.
name, but because it all still kind of made sense. But basically, I kind of pivoted. Like, my YouTube buddy, he was like, what are you so bummed about, man? This is awesome. Like, you have traction. And I was like, it's just tiny home and Airbnb content on YouTube is just so boring. And he was like, dude, I have an idea. And I'm like, what you got? And he's like, what if the content you made was that, but it was like not boring? And I was like, genius. And so I kind of
Okay.
went all in on just being this kind of weird, goofy guy that teaches you real
Yeah.
estate. And I never looked back.
Yeah.
You find a niche and you kind of double down on it. And that's been something I've been pretty good at. And yeah, fast forward to 6 years later, and here I am.
I love it. So today, what are the aspects that you really love about what you do? I know you do a lot of other things. You've had communities and you've
Mhm.
taught a lot of students, and you've got even a design company. There's just so many aspects that
Yeah.
you've leaned into. What do you really enjoy?
I think I like helping people just figure out how to. I kind of like helping people break out of the idea that there's another way, or break into the idea that there's another way. Because I think like when you're working a 9 to 5 and you're working for corporate, like you kind of just grow up in this system in America where it's like, hey, go to school, which I agree with, like get educated, which I agree with, go get a job. I agree with making money. Go to college, get educated, get this 9 to 5 job, and get a job for 40 years and then retire. And like a lot of that I don't particularly dislike or disagree with. What I dislike and disagree with is that that it's a requirement. I think a lot of people think you have to work a 9 to 5 and you have to work for someone else. And that's what I thought. And I just remember being in my advertising career not making a lot of money. Like my first job, I was making $40,000 a year. Actually, no, my first job, I was making $33,000 a year. This was like 12 years ago. Next job was 40. And, it's just like, I thought I was rich when I got this job. And then my paycheck started coming in and like after student loans and your rent and food and credit card debt, like $40,000 doesn't really leave you with like literally
No.
anything. And so I was always just obsessed with figuring out like how to write my own paycheck, because I had these sales jobs in high school where I was going door to door and selling alarm systems, and I was really good at it. And I remember making a ton of money and being like, man, if I'm good at this, I can make a lot of money. And then I remember in college, I was an apartment locator. I was actually a realtor in college, and same thing. I'd get these like $1,000 or $2,000 paychecks, and I was like, wow, I can write my own paycheck. And then I kind of went into this 9 to 5 job where I'm making $40,000 a year. And I'm like, there is literally nothing I can do to make more money, like at my job. Doesn't matter how good I am. Doesn't matter how much I overachieve. Like the only thing I can do is wait to get a promotion in a few years, or go to another job and basically say like, hey, yeah, like I want $20,000 more, and then go back to the old job and say, hey, they're offering me $20,000 more. What are y'all gonna do? And so that whole thing to me was so frustrating. And so it's a long answer to basically say that there is another way out
Yeah.
there. There is another way to take control of your financial life. And so for me, it's kind of like I just want to show people that you can actually change the financial outcome of your life. And I kind of wish that red pill wasn't commandeered by a certain group of people, because I think it is such a great analogy, like the whole idea of the matrix. You have the blue pill and the red pill, and if you take the red pill, you see life in a different
Yeah.
way. And I hate that it's commandeered by a specific taboo and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But the way I feel about that, though, is that now that I'm an entrepreneur, now that I make money on my own, now that I pay myself and I pay employees, I'm like, I can't imagine going back to a 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with doing that if that's what you want. but I get a lot of enjoyment out of showing someone that there's a world outside of the 9 to 5 construct that they can thrive in.
Yeah.
I guess I could probably just said that, but the other stuff
No,
seemed
it's
important.
it's I like all the story. There's so much meat behind it. So when you
Mhm.
decided to take that leap from leaving your ad agency job, um, how was that? Because I imagine you didn't go viral once and then go, "That's it, I'm quitting, it's over." It probably took a while, and then you probably had to get your wife on board. And so, what did that look like?
Yeah, so I've always kind of pitched my wife on crazy ideas. I mean, I'm a hustler,
Yeah.
man. Like I said, making $40,000. You got to figure out how to make money other ways. And so I would do so many things. I would go to Doritos like taste test like focus groups to make $50. I would buy VCRs on Craigslist for $10 to flip them for like 100. I would build furniture on Etsy. And then, Airbnb comes around and I'm like, babe, there's this thing we can list our apartment on this website. Strangers will pay to sleep in the apartment. We won't be in it, but like we'll make more than rent. And obviously it's Airbnb. And
Yeah.
so she was always kind of used to these crazy pitches and going along with it and
I
supporting
love
me.
it.
Um, the conversation I told you about where we're talking about YouTube and how much money they make. YouTubers really don't make that much money. Like if you are a small creator, which I was, I mean, I think when I quit my job, I want to say I had like 50,000 subscribers. I mean, my ad revenue was probably, I don't know, ten to $20,000 a year. So it's not a
Yeah.
lot, and that's kind of a lot for most small creators. I think most small creators make less than that, and so it wasn't really that caused me to quit my job. So a little context: I was working at this ad agency in LA. I had moved up and gotten a new job and raises, and so I was making 110K at the new job. Which again seems like a lot, but if you're living in LA, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not
Not
that
much.
much. And my wife was teaching, so she was making actually, I think, a decent amount for a teacher. She was making like 75K as a teacher in the kind of Orange County area. So together, we're making like 180. Again, it's like not that much, but we're not broke anymore. We're not paycheck to paycheck like we were when we were living in Kansas City making 40K. Um, so I'm kind of doing this like YouTube thing. I'm doing Airbnb. I had again an arbitrage, and so I'm like making like $1,000 to $2,000 a month, and that was like to me, I'm making 110K, and I feel like I'm getting by in LA, and I start making $1,000 to $2,000 a month on Airbnb, and that is all of a sudden like play money. Like, whoa, hold on. Like, I have $1,000 that if I didn't Airbnb, it wouldn't exist. So if I was just working my 9 to 5
Yeah.
job, this money would not exist. Thus, by me just doing a little bit of work on the side and making this like pretend money, I can kind of do whatever I want with it. And so for that first year, we went to 10 different countries and we traveled.
Amazing.
And it was the first time and only time I really only paid myself with Airbnb. But it kind of just showed me, I'm like, dude, if I could make like $1,000 to $2,000 a month 10 times, then that's like $10,000 to $20,000 a month that I could
Yeah.
make on top of my 6-figure salary. Now I'm rich. And so that was my journey for a long time. I start the channel and I'm documenting this journey and people are interested in it. And I start the channel during the pandemic. So a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
people are probably feeling sort of resentment towards their job and they're like, I don't want to work
Yeah.
anymore. Like what's easy money? Like, there's that whole like side hustle culture that was kind of emerging at that time. And so, kind of funny, like one of my old friends, his brother had a YouTube channel and he reached out to me and he goes, hey man, I saw you had a YouTube channel. And I'm like, yeah, man, I saw you have a YouTube channel too. This is really cool. Like we should be buds. Let's talk. He goes, yeah, man, I'd love to chat. There's a lot of ways you can make money as a YouTuber. I'd love to help you. And I'm like, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. Absolutely. When can you Zoom? And he was like, yeah, well, actually, I'd have to charge you a consultation fee in order to do that. And I was like, okay,
Hmm.
how much is that? And he was like, it'll be $150 an hour. And I remember just shutting my laptop and being like, that manipulative piece of crap. He befriended me just to make me feel good, and then he wants to charge me $150 an hour. He wants to charge me $150
You're
$150 an
like,
hour.
I
I
could
can
do
make
this.
$150 an hour. Yeah, exactly.
Oh
And
gosh.
so I was like, that's kind of
Yeah.
nuts. And so my next YouTube video, I was making a video on how to permit a tiny home in LA. And I was like, hey, I just started a consultation service. I'll leave a link in the description down below. And, if you want to book me for an hour, you can. And I charge $150. And I got like one or two that week. And then next week, one or two. And a month later, I was like at two or three. And a couple weeks after that, 3 or 4 per week. And then, fast forward a couple months and I'm booked a month in advance. I'm working my job 9 to 5. And then basically from 5 to midnight, I'm doing back-to-back consultation calls,
Wow.
raising my
To
price from
midnight.
150 to 200 to 250. Yeah, it was rough. And I
Yeah.
don't recommend it. I'm out of the one-on-one kind of consulting game
Sure.
now, but at that time it was an extra $20,000 or $30,000 a month just on top of my salary, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I can influence my paycheck. I can actually do this, and so basically, by the time that was all kind of growing, I kept telling my wife, I'm like, I got to quit my job. Like, I just got to quit. And then she was like, all right, quit. And I was like, no, I could never quit. I mean, what about health insurance? And we just had a baby. So my wife was actually like very supportive and very like every time I'd be like, I need to quit, she'd be like, just do it. And I'd be like, no, I could never. I could never. And so it took me about a year and a half of doing this YouTube consultation thing to really kind of decide like I'm really leaving a lot of money on the table by I'm it's like I can't sustain basically these 12-hour 14-hour days of consults and advertising, and so I basically decided to quit. About a year and a half in, I was living in Tennessee. I had moved out there to build a tiny house village.
Oh wow.
And and I quit, and it was a big emotional moment for me. I opened my Zoom, and my bosses like to quit to my bosses. I was like, hey, do you guys have a second? And they're like, yeah. So they're like, all right, what's going on? And I was like,
Oh.
and I'm like just like crying my eyes out. And
Oh.
then they're like, oh my God, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm quitting. And they're like, oh my goodness. Oh, you're just quitting? Oh, that's great. Congratulations. We've been waiting for you to quit.
Oh, that's
And
sweet.
I was like, you're not mad? Like, again, I'm kind of brainwashed into just like this world where like I'm letting down my
Yeah.
bosses. When in reality, like with the 9 to 5 thing, it's just one of the things is like they were great people. I love them. They're the best bosses I've ever had. But like a company will fire you at any given moment.
Yeah.
Like if they're not making money and you're on the expense sheet, it's all about the bottom line. Like a company you're fired. You don't get a 2 weeks
Yeah.
notice. Whereas on the opposite end, I'm expected to give a 2 weeks notice, which I did. But like, that's another kind of instance where I was just like, man, I can't believe I was so emotional about this. But really I was just emotional about kind of like the death of old Rob and like this new Rob. And I just didn't know what that meant at the time.
Quick break to talk about something I genuinely think every investor listening to this show should know about. You're out there getting creative with how you acquire deals. Seller financing, subject to lease options, and that's all great. But are you being just as creative on the tax side? Cost segregation is one of the most powerful tools real estate investors never use. And it's because people think it's expensive and complicated. DIY cost seg killed that excuse. Starting at $4.95, you can get an official cost segregation report in 5 minutes, not weeks. Not after a $5,000 bill from a tax engineer. 5 minutes. And as a listener of the show, use code CreativeCloser at checkout to save $50 on residential studies, or Creative Closer C to save $100 on commercial studies. If you've got a rental, an STR, a multifamily, run the numbers before you file this year. Go on DIYcoseg.com.
And it's such a leap
And
of
so, yeah,
faith. I mean, it's scary.
it was.
Yeah, totally.
It was really, they were like, they were like, are you going to be okay financially? And I was like, yeah, I make so much more money doing the other stuff. And they were like, then what are you worried about? I was like, the health
Oh
insurance.
my
I was like
God.
worried about this $2,000 a month thing. And it was a risk,
Yeah, totally.
but it worked out. And, that year I 10x'd my income and things just kind of went crazy. The real estate portfolio blew up
Never
and
looked back.
just never
I
looked
love it.
back. Occasionally I look back and I'm like, yes, that was something I did. I miss the people. I miss the culture, the camaraderie,
Yeah.
the benefits. But like No, this is a much
Yeah, you get to
cooler thing,
create
and it's
your
not for
own
everybody.
camaraderie.
Yeah, that's a camaraderie. Oh, yeah, that's a good podcast
Oh
name. I
my
like
God.
it.
Okay. So, for people who want to quit, because I feel like a lot of times people get into real estate investing and they're like, oh, great, I can quit my job. And I think people
Yeah,
do it way too soon, or maybe they have these
always.
stars in their eyes that they can do it way sooner than they can. What kind of advice would you give to people that are thinking, great, I'm going to get into this and quit?
My advice would be don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that I hate to say it because I know it's so sexy on the internet to be like, have one short-term rental, make $10,000 a month, live on the beach.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not a reality. There have been ebbs and flows in my portfolio. I mean, I always have been profitable, but if I had kind of put all my eggs in the basket of like short-term
Yeah.
rentals at the highest point of like how much I made, I actually make the most now, but over the years it's changed.
Completely.
I think I'd be like in ruins, like on years where I had a down year or years where I had to invest a lot into like repairs or, CapEx. And so I don't think that it's wise to be a full-time real estate investor very quickly. I think it's one of those things where for me, when I tell people if they're going to quit their job and be a real estate investor, I think real estate investments are kind of like a passive income
Yeah.
source, and not passive in that like, you don't have to manage it. It's actually quite active. What I more mean is like, well, if you think about it from the IRS standpoint, the IRS thinks of two things, right? Passive and active
Yeah.
income. I think real estate and the money that you make from short-term rentals and long-term rentals and like whatever, right? Like whatever rental you have, that is money that I do not believe belongs to me. It belongs to future Rob very far down the line. It,
Yeah.
it belongs to my family down the line. It belongs to actually, to say it more clearly, the money that my real estate portfolio produces belongs to my real estate
Yeah.
portfolio in maintaining the health and activity within that portfolio. So what that means is you don't get to spend that money, because if you spend that money too soon, you will find yourself in a very tough position where you are out of funds, bankrupt, foreclosed on. And so the way to counteract this is by finding another source of income that I would consider active, that you are actively working to make that,
Yeah.
right? Things that you do, right? Wholesaling, being a real estate agent, being a flipper, being a wholesale, like anything where you are making big cash flow from certain
Yeah.
things, from like your active time and attention, that's where you're going to make your money. So for me, I make very good income from the short-term rental side. I don't pull from it. But on the other end, I do a lot of things. I have my YouTube income, which not really much, but like I pretty much lose money on the channel, but it feeds my education company, Host Camp, which is going through a lot of big kind of model changes right now. We're becoming this newsletter kind of SaaS services thing, but that's like one of my I actively work on that
Yeah.
business and get paid from that business. I've got Funkit Interiors, my interior design company, that is a service base where it makes money and I get paid from it. That's just how that business is set up with my partners. Those are my active income sources, and I depend on those so that I don't have to pull from real estate. Because if I pull from real estate, then I have no money to put back into real estate.
Yeah.
And so for someone looking to quit, I think if you're going to quit, I hope that you're making money some other way that's not from your rental income. And I think you should really fight yourself to never pull from your rental income. But that's my philosophy. I mean, I don't know if it's conservative or aggressive,
Yeah.
but that's how I think probably relatively conservative.
Well, I think it's smart. I mean, you're somebody who has so many units. You said like 40 to 45. So you definitely know how it goes. And I was talking to another investor yesterday who had, I think she has like 35. And she was saying that she doesn't even consider it her income. So she doesn't get annoyed when things break because she's considering it kind of her tenant's income. She's got long-term rentals, so it's a little different. But she was
Yeah.
saying that it's
It's
almost
similar
like you're
though.
holding it in a savings account for them when they've got stuff that's broken and then you got to fix it. But I also think of it as like bonus. I don't even count it as my income until, taxes or whatever. but it's not something I'm tracking because the rentals can be all over the place. Sometimes it just feels negligible. So yeah, I do think that's a really good way to look at it.
Okay, real quick. I want to talk about something every investor on this show needs to hear. We spend a ton of time talking about how to creatively get into deals, but almost none on what happens to the money after you close. Most CPAs are historians. They tell you what you made, what you owe, and when to write the check. That's not a wealth strategy. Axiom Wealth does something different. They start with a wealth x ray, a line by line review of your tax returns and investments to show exactly where you're overpaying in taxes and where your capital is underperforming. Their clients see significant savings on taxes and gain access to off market, tax efficient alternative investments that most advisors can't offer. If you're an accredited investor paying nearly 6 figures or more in taxes and closing deals, but your net worth isn't growing as fast as it should, this is the conversation to have. Schedule your free wealth x-ray at axiomwealth.com.
I mean, sometimes like I do, like I have a remodel in Los Angeles right now from one of that house that I was telling you about. Like I've been remodeling that for a year. It's longer than it should be, but like it was a budget remodel. There's a lot of issues with it, but all to say, like my carrying costs on it are $4,400 a month because that's my mortgage, and then what I spent on the remodel. So like I have pulled from my other accounts that I've just stacked a bunch of money in, and I've used those funds to basically fund this remodel that I didn't have to do, but I did because I wanted a nicer place for whenever I go and visit and use it as a second home. So like there's some flexibility and kind of leeway where I'm like, I pull funds to fund things that I want within my real estate portfolio, but I don't I don't like take 10K out of my account to be like, I want to go buy a new car.
Yeah.
Like I just, that's not something that I do.
Can you tell me what you drive? Are you one of those people that has like
I
an
drive
old Civic or something?
no. I'm actually very bad about
Okay.
cars. Very, very bad about cars. I drive a 4Runner. I just bought a
Okay.
4Runner.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. I really
I
like it.
bet you do. Fancy guy. Okay, so
Yeah.
how did you hear about creative financing? I imagine, you started with the whole Airbnb world and maybe you weren't focused on that, but how'd you stumble upon it?
Just probably the way that like 99% of people do. Pace Morby,
Oh, really? Even then? Or is this something that's kind of newer for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. I mean, like Pace was kind of on the rise when I was like my first year at Bigger Pockets. And I remember he went to the conference and he was there. And people like my COO at the time was like, dude, Pace is here. And I was like, I don't know who that is. And he was like, you don't know Pace? He's like in creative finance. And I was just like, I'm sure he's a nice guy. And I went and talked to him and he was, you talk to Pace and it's like,
Story time.
you can tell there's something about
Yeah.
him, right? Like it's just kind of like, oh my God, this guy he's the shit, And he was so nice, and he was just like, dude, your content is good, and like you're so great, and he was just like a very nice guy, and so just by kind of being so interested in him as a person, I kind of went down the rabbit hole and was like, oh, like I was obviously familiar with seller finance, but like I guess I didn't realize that necessarily seller finance was under this giant, like under the creative finance umbrella, because then that's kind of when I started learning more about sub two and hybrids and all that stuff. And so again, I was familiar with seller finance, but really like when I met Pace was more when I started getting acquainted with subject to and all that stuff. So I would say probably like, yeah, probably been in this world like 4 years or so.
Okay. And then what was the first instance that you got to try it? Was it the one that you talk about in the forward where you were kind of just driving along and saw for sale by owner and talked to him about that?
No, I think that was probably the second or third creative finance deal I had done, because I had also purchased a property in Crystal Beach. And that was more of a hybrid. So I did a subject to on the main mortgage and then finance the equity on that. And then that was like really complicated because, well, it actually wasn't, but it felt like it was, because when I talked to Pace about it, he goes, oh yeah, you're just going to do this and this and boom, 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 boom. And you're ready to go. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sweet. And then I get to the closing table and, none of it is what he said. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm going to buy the $600,000 house and like none of this is right. And so I like called him. I'm like, bro, what do I do? This form says this, and you said it was this. He goes, just calm down, like do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I like gave the phone to the creative coordinator. She goes, yeah, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then I closed on it, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that wasn't really that hard. And then I went into I think the next deal I bought was the seller finance deal, and that was so much easier. Seller finance deals are like,
Cakewalk.
they almost feel, yeah, they just almost feel like someone got scammed somewhere, because it's literally like a stack of papers like this thick, it's like 5 papers and I signed it. Whereas buying a traditional mortgage, you're signing stacks. That's
Like a
basically
phone
like
book.
you're going to give your firstborn up if you can't pay this mortgage and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of forms that you don't recognize. But yeah, no, I would, the creative one, the seller finance deal from the forward, I think was deal like 3 perhaps.
Well, I think you're really highlighting why it's good to have a mentor, at least for your first couple
Big time.
deals. And if not, like a TC at least that gets it. I
Big
also
time.
talked to Perla, who's someone that you introduced me to. She's a great TC.
Perla's the
Yeah,
best.
she wrote
Perla Argyle, TC Deal Pros.
yes, she wrote a section for my book about TCs and like why you want them and stuff. So yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
that's
very
cool.
important to have a mentor on your side. So yeah, I'm glad you had Pace of all people. Like, how lucky are you?
I mean, I will say that being the host of the Bigger Pockets
Comes
podcast
with
did have
perks.
some it did have some perks, and the perks was that I had a Rolodex of really crazy people that I could call and beg for help, and he was one of them. And Pace is the GOAT. There's a reason Pace is the GOAT. I will always say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much he does. I feel like he has more hours in the day than anybody else.
Still looking good, man. Still looking young and spry. I'm more tired and I do less, so I don't know.
No.
There's something in his blood.
Yeah. So I heard you at the beginning say that arbitrage was not a wealth generator for you. And I'm curious if you've
Right.
tried lease option, because I wrote in my book that I think lease option is better than arbitrage because it's kind of a
Yeah.
similar idea, but you get to be this middleman and you make money on both sides. But it is like a departure from what you do with Airbnb. And so sometimes when you're just, there's a million different squirrels you can chase, especially when you have a podcast like the Bigger Pockets podcast. You probably hear cool strategies every day, and then you're like, shoot, I should go do that. I should do this. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming you haven't, but I'm curious.
Right. No, I haven't. But here's kind of my thought. I mean, lease options are just far better. Just checks most of the boxes
Yeah.
for me, because I think the problem with the arbitrage business, and again, this is the idea. You go to a landlord and you say, hey, I'm going to rent your home or your apartment, and then I'm going to furnish it and list it on Airbnb. That's the correct way to do it. Back in the day, before it was called arbitrage, it was called lying to your
Yeah,
landlord.
subletting. I
And,
did it. That's how
yeah,
I started.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, the first arbitrage I did, I was living in it, and I bought this house in LA, and I was gonna have to break my lease, but I didn't have like $2,000 to do that, or however much it was gonna be. And so I went to the leasing office, and I was like, "Hi," and they're like, "Hey," I was like, "Oh, do people Airbnb here?" And then they're like, "Oh yeah, all the time." And I was like, "Do y'all care?" And then they were like, "Meh, not really." And I was like, "Good enough for me." And
Great.
in retrospect, I now
That's
realize
lucky.
they were probably making $15 an hour. They didn't own it. They were just employees of this property management company, and they didn't know about what Airbnb was. So they were like, "Yeah, people do it. Who cares?" And I was like, "You said it. You said it, not me."
Yeah.
That was the first one, and then you quickly realize that that's not how landlords are. It's like, you have to pitch the hell out of landlords to get them to agree to this, much like you have to pitch creative finance to homeowners. But with like arbitrage, you're paying rent. It's just a business. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, I think there's all these gurus on YouTube and on Instagram. They've got like 3 arbitrage units, and those arbitrage units make like $1,000 a piece. And then they're like, I'm making $3,000 a month. I didn't even use my own money. I used business credit, which is usually a lie. And then they're like, and I just did this with no money out of pocket. And I'm just like, okay, I guess you make $3,000 a month, it's $36,000 a year. That was huge for me when I got started. But then the moment your lease is over, this little business that you created is over too.
Yes.
I had a lease that was active for a year, good to go. We were making $1,000 a month. And then when the lease renewal came through, it was like yeah, we're not going to renew your lease. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, we've just chosen not to. I'm like, but when I signed this, you said I could keep renewing. They're like, yeah, we know what we said. We're just choosing not to renew it. And, I didn't really have a leg to stand on. And I was like, okay, I guess. And so I had like, I don't know, $5,000 worth of furniture that I had to sell very quickly. And none of it sold, and we gave it all to Goodwill. And so from that day, I was just like, okay, I mean, I made money, but then I had to figure out where to put like 4 mattresses and IKEA bed frames and coffee tables. And it was just really a really frustrating experience. Whereas with the lease option, you basically get to lock in the price. Sometimes I think you can negotiate that the money that you pay goes towards that price. And you have the option to say, hey, yeah, I want to buy this house at a price that I locked in a year, 2, 3, or 4 years ago. And, it's probably not quite the same as arbitrage. And it's not really an apples to apples comparison. But what I like is that you have the optionality to pursue it if you want to. Whereas with arbitrage, like you're kind of just at the whim of a landlord who says like, yeah, I'm going to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want you to renew. Yeah, this is over. Like there's just so many variables with arbitrage. But you can build wealth with lease options because you can buy the house.
Yes.
That's kind of what I advocate for.
And what a lot of people do is the sandwich lease option. So they get a tenant on the other side. So they're really just the guy in the middle,
Okay, so explain that a little bit for people at home that
yeah,
don't know.
totally. So like you said, you can lock in this price and you can negotiate something that's very affordable. So maybe it's just buying it for the price of rent because mortgages are often a lot more expensive. And then you can turn around, you can re-rent that to someone. You can collect an option fee from them. So they're going to be a tenant buyer, someone who wants to buy the home. So you get the option fee up front, then you get rent every month, and you can also get rent credits. So you can have them pay over what, standard rent would be in that area.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you could have sold it for more. So sometimes people lock in a premium because they're saying, oh, this house might appreciate. And so that could be 10% more than what the value is at the time. So you get money 3 times. You get it at the option fee, you get it monthly, and then you get it at the end when they buy it. So it can be
Interestingly,
a cool middleman thing.
I was going to say that's a thing that, funny enough, forerunners, like I think that's a big play in the car industry is with Tacomas and Forerunners because they have the highest resale value of all vehicles. Yeah. Don't do this, guys. I'm just saying. This is very similar. They will go and lease the Forerunner at this price, and then generally speaking, at the end of the lease, because they've locked it in here, it's usually worth more, and a lot of people will basically lease it and then turn around and sell the car and make a few $1,000s on that spread.
Amazing.
I'd imagine it's obviously better on a house because it's a lot less risky.
A lot more money.
But with the house, you're basically saying you lock it in for $300K. You have this tenant in there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. The house is now worth $450, and you get to make that spread if they decide to buy it from you at that price, right?
Yeah.
That's not bad. Have you done a lot of this?
I haven't, but there are people that do a lot of them. I think it's just it's easy to stay in your lane. So there are things that I know how to do well, and I'm like, okay, this is a really cool strategy, but it would be a departure from what I do every day. So
yeah, I get it. There's so many little niches within creative finance that I'm like, that would be really fun, but I have to stay disciplined. But trust me, I'm the squirrel chaser. So this year, 2026, my resolution is to chase one squirrel. Yeah. Simplicity is kind of the squirrel that I'm chasing. So
what is the squirrel?
Basically just like selling off, leasing Forerunners and flipping them. Yeah. So you can go to robsflippedforerunners.com. I'm trying to sell off a lot of my portfolio. Nice. I've actually been actively selling off my portfolio over the last year. Made a whole video about it, and it did pretty well on YouTube because people always they love to hear me sort of like fail or like prove. They like kind of this confirmation bias that Airbnbs aren't great. So if I make a video that's like why I'm selling all my Airbnbs, everyone's like, oh shit,
what's happening?
If Rob's selling his Airbnbs, it's bad, But really what I did is I sold off a lot of things to 1031 into this tiny house village that I bought. It's a 13-unit tiny home village in Texas. And I'm still selling it because I'm still selling a lot of my properties, or trying to, because I'm trying to take those funds to continue developing this tiny home village. Yeah. And one of the things I've realized is it's cool to have a lot of homes, except when you have 15 single family residences, you have 15 cleaners, you have 15 handymen, you have 15
Yeah, if
plumbers,
you're in
15
different
electricians,
markets.
15 pest control.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I am.
Hmm.
And so it's not all that cool to have that many homes when you're managing
Yeah.
15 different people that don't really care about your business. You're one of their clients. Like for my cleaner, if she's got 20 clients and I'm the pickiest, she told me I'm the one that complains the most. Because
Yeah.
I'm a host, right? Like I want my place to be nice,
Yeah.
but she's like, she told me like she's got to reconsider if she like at one time I was like, hey, there's dust all over the fan.
Yeah.
Let's get that clean. That's not a good look. And she's like, you're my pickiest client. I need to think about if I want to continue
She's not
working
going to
with you. And I
renew
was like,
your
all right, that's
lease.
fine. Yeah, pretty much, right? I'm like, that's
Yeah.
fine if you want to do that, but can you give me some time? And she's like, yeah. And then she ended up sticking around.
Mm.
But all to say, for her, she's got 20 clients, to sacrifice one. She's like, yeah, it's just 1/20th of my income. I'll go find another client. That is how it is with like when you own all these single family residences, is like you don't, like no one is beholden to you. No one cares about you. They want their paycheck. And if you have a good rapport, great. But if you're kind of an annoying client, they're going to do what we all do. And we're going to fire that annoying client. I'm sure you've fired many annoying clients.
Yes.
And like with this tiny home village that I have, it's a 13 unit tiny home village. I've got one cleaning team and their only focus is this property. I've got one superintendent, like groundskeeper. He lives on the property. I've got one set of VAs. I've got one manager of all of them. And all of their livelihoods directly are correlated to this property, meaning that they want it to succeed because they will lose their only source of income. And that's a very big change in a business from the Airbnb model where you're just kind of like some random client.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, now that I've been managing this tiny home village that makes way more money, by the way, than my entire portfolio, way more streamlined and like legitimately actually way more passive for me. I'm like, dude, that's all why don't I do more of that? So I'm trying to like get rid of everything. And it's not a diss on Airbnb. There's a time and a place for it.
I mean, it's still Airbnb because
investor,
you're doing the village on Airbnb.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's all Airbnb. It's all direct booking and Airbnb, but it's like there's nothing wrong with it. There's a time and place for the single family residence thing, but I think what every investor has to figure out very quickly is that there is an end game and no one knows what that is because they're just so focused on this like $1,000 to $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, yeah, I figured out my end game and it's like a simple life with not that many leaky toilets and, high maintenance people. I just want one streamlined operation. Yeah. And so I'm getting rid of the singles to kind of move more into like the grand slam territory. And that's kind of where I feel like I'm at. Yeah. So that's my squirrels. Like I want to get rid of anything that makes $1,000 or $2,000 a month in my Airbnb portfolio, like get rid of it. And which is great money, but it's just not worth the headache when I could just make that over here at this other property.
Absolutely.
And it's way less.
Yeah.
Headache.
So what's the grand vision? Like how much can you develop that tiny home village to be? Could you put like 50 units on it?
Yeah, it's 20 acres. We have 13 now. We're trying to get it up to 23. That's how much we can do on the first half. And then we can get technically up to 46.
Wow.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit of a journey to get, we'd have to re-raise and do a lot of different things. But for now, like the 13 produce so much income that we're going to add 5 this quarter. But after that, I'm kind of like, yeah, we could go out and just like crush it and make more money. But I'm like, sometimes it's okay to be okay with the amount of money that you make on stuff. And I think that's kind of where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Growth for growth, it's not always the way to go. It's like people grow too fast and then it becomes a big old mess.
That was me. I mean, like I've made it work and I've done well, but like I don't want my life. I don't wish my life on other people.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are like, dude, you have 40. I want that. I'm like, I don't think you do. Like,
I feel like that's what people normally say. It's like, it's what someone thinks, but then it's like, ooh, not actually. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, okay. So you talked about a raise. I knew you guys had gotten some outside funding for this. Are you doing continual funding or can people reach out to you to add to that? Or is it just something that you kind of like raised and closed?
I kind of, So I actually funded. So we raised about $1.5 million and then I put in $800K of my own capital. I actually wanted to fund the whole thing, but some sales didn't go through. And then instead of going public, like that's the thing, like there are real estate investors, the majority of them, like the smart ones, they go out and they raise millions. And then they have these portfolios that are like 20, 30, 40, Brandon Turner, great example, awesome real estate investor, has raised I don't know, more than $100 million
Probably.
dollars,
Yeah.
has 300 million under management, I believe. That's a great life for someone if that's what you want to do. I think like I don't want to go and like I don't want to be beholden to 2,000
It's a
strangers
lot of
and then
responsibility.
have to answer. It is, and with with great power comes great responsibility,
Yeah.
right? And like so for this kind of tiny raise, I was like, well, I could go and raise it like super fast, but I was like, I could also just own it. Like I think the thing is like at that size, if I were to raise the whole thing, then it's just like I only own a little piece of it, and I kind of wanted the whole thing. And so for the other 700,000, I went to friends and family. I went to mom, dad, sister, cousin, uncle, like ex-boss from
I
advertising,
love it.
just like literal like a small group of
Yeah.
people that I was like, the thing is, it was such a good
Yeah.
deal that I was like, there's some deals that are special that you're kind of like, I want my people who supported me to be a
Yeah.
part of this. And that's exactly what happened. So like everyone that was kind of in that small little raise are people that have really supported me along the way. So I
Mm.
went to them first. I was like, guys, I don't ever raise from friends or family, but like this is the one. This would be a really good one for you guys to get in on. And they're like, awesome. And so we closed it. In terms of kind of like what the future holds and raising, maybe I don't think I
Yeah.
don't think I'm cut out for that world.
You'd probably
You know,
just
I
go
don't
to
think
the
I want to
same few
raise.
people and be like, "Hey, it's been 2 years. Do you have more money?"
Ideally, yeah, and
Yeah.
I really don't want to do
Yeah.
it. I mean, look, things can change. I change my mind all the time, but I'm just really not. I'm not like I don't know. You know Tony Robinson, real
Yeah,
estate
of
rookie.
course.
He's my Airbnb bestie,
Mm,
and
cute.
told me one time he wanted to be a billionaire, and I was just like,
But why?
yeah, no
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah,
Well, he'll probably get
pass.
there.
Like, no, well, yeah, him, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But like, actually, I think he's probably like changed his mindset on it a
Mhm.
bit. But for me, I'm just like Pace, he's gonna be a
No, for
billionaire.
sure.
Brandon Turner,
Yeah.
probably. I like much respect for people that want to do that.
Yeah.
I think I'm good with like, I don't know, call me old fashioned, 10 million bucks. Like, I think I'm good working towards that goal and
Totally.
ending
I
there
feel
and
like you're
just
probably not far off
like
from that, but
being,
yeah,
yeah,
it's doable.
it's not too, yeah, it's super doable. And yeah, like I think I'm trying to get there soonish where I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm good. I don't know. I feel like I've lived the life. I'm at the point in my real estate career where I figured it out and I'm like, ah, cool. I don't need to make $1 million a month. And if you do, anyone listening at home, congratulations. And that's
Yeah.
awesome. But there's just, if you got a kids and family and stuff, it's just, I don't
Quality
know.
of life.
I miss my kids too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Okay, well, you talked at the beginning about how most of what you bought was with little to no cash in that was yours because you just didn't have it. And I know a lot of people come to creative finance because they get sold on this idea that, like, oh, I don't need money. I can buy something with zero down. And you can. And you could also use other people's money, but it's something I don't normally recommend until you're really experienced. So, can you speak to that and like how you did it?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think this is my big issue with creative finance, like subject to
Hmm.
specifically. I think the big problem is that people don't have a relationship with debt and they don't respect debt. And so this idea of like, oh, I can just take over payments, like, and oh, like the financial repercussions are technically on the original owner, like what's the worst that could happen? And I think people have gone out and gobbled up all these subject to homes and have been in really bad positions where the properties didn't pencil out like the way they
Yeah.
thought. So I think that's very
Hmm.
dangerous. Generally speaking, when I got started, it was very similar. Like I'm partnering with other people. I think the difference is like the people that I partnered up with and the people that like put money into it were also actively working on the business. And so my philosophy at the very beginning was like, if I borrow someone's money, it is worth 4 times the amount. So if someone gives me $1, if I lose that dollar, it needs to feel like I lost four of my own. If I lose 1,000, then I've lost 4,000 of my own.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of had that philosophy. So I've always just been very serious about like, this is like a real thing. And whoever I'm raising for worked hard for it. And if I mess that up, you know, like if someone lent me $50,000, for example, that's how I feel about this, tiny home
Yeah.
village. It probably took them 2, 3, 4, 5 years to save that money up.
Yeah.
So if I mess it up, they would have to work another 5 years to get that back. And it's like, you have to really think about, like, I think that people have this idea of like, oh yeah, they've got 50K in the bank. Like, what's the word? Like, whatever, they're going to lose it. They can do it again. And it's like, people work their whole lives to make and save money.
Yeah.
So you have to be really serious about that. And I think the creative finance thing is a really beautiful opportunity. And while it seems very beginner friendly because you can get in with low to no money down, I think it's really actually quite advanced and should be used as an advanced tool for people like me now, where I know how to operate real estate. I know how to run it. I know how to run properties now. I know how to manage them. So I feel comfortable going out and not having to leverage so much money to acquire a property. But I think someone who has to learn real estate and how to manage and how to operate real estate while also learning how debt works and how to respect debt and being a fresh investor, I think those don't really mix that well. And I know a lot of people that are into creative finance would be angry at what I just said. And they'd be like, yes, you can. It's accessible. Anybody can do it. You know, it's fine, to each their own. But I think it's a pretty advanced tactic if you want to do it correctly and well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I mean, of course, it's like you say, what's exciting to sell somebody on it. That's like what I hear kind of gurus doing out there. But I do think, again, like you said, great power, great responsibility. Well, this time went really fast, but I really appreciate you being here and sharing. Where can people find out more about you and the things you're up to? Follow along on this tiny home village magic.
Sure. Okay, well, you can find me on YouTube at Robuilt, Robuilt. Same thing on Instagram. I put all my best content out for free. If you want to learn how to do more and you want more, you can go to hostcamp.com. We got plenty of stuff on there. Sign up for my newsletter. We are kind of moving into the newsletter space, and I'm putting a lot more thought and writing into short-term rental operations, how to scale, how to acquire markets to look out for. So you can go sign up at hostcamp.com. And I don't know, if you want me to design your Airbnb, you can go to funkitinteriors.com. Outside of that, that's pretty much it. I got a few places. If you type in Rob Abasolo, you'll find me somewhere.
You'll find him. This is interesting. Newsletter is not far from a book. You read enough newsletters. Who knows, Robbie?
Yeah.
It's
on the horizon. It's on the horizon. It's just, it took me long enough to write your foreword. I think you were asking me for months, and I was like, I don't want to use ChatGPT. This is going to come from my fingers. And I think that's how I am with books too, where I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it myself. I'm not going to use tools. So I don't know. We'll see. Give me.
And it's such a good forward. So you have the potential.
Well, thank you. It's on my 2026 roadmap to start a book, though. So
I love it. Well, thanks for being a part of mine and for today and your time. And I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.